welcome to the end of week 0. For each week, I'll create a video for the week's mini project, and it'll walk you through the details of how to create that mini project. Most of the mini projects will be between 50 to 150 lines of Python code. However, the first mini project we're going to do is going to be very easy. It's just one line of Python code. And it's really designed to help you learn how to create, submit, and peer evaluate your mini projects. It's totally optional. If you feel confident you can follow instructions, feel free to skip this. If you think it's silly, feel free to skip it. Before I go on to there, though, I'm going to answer 2 important questions. First, why would anybody name a computer language after a giant snake? It's Python. Everybody says, what's Python? It's a snake. Well, no, it's named after something different. It's named after Monty Python's Flying Circus. So Monty Python's Flying Circus is a British comedy troupe, and there's a kind of a tradition in the Python community to have inside references to material from Monty Python skits and movies. Our project is based on inside reference to the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and they're Knights of King Arthur, or the members of the Python comedy troupe, and they go out and interact with the Knights who say knee. And I'll let you kind of dig around on the web if you want to find out more information. But the phrase, "we want a shrubbery," comes up in that particular scene. The second question that you might want to ask is, who's this? This is Sirloin. I'm the chair of the Department of Computer Science here at Rice, and I inherited Sirloin. This is really his name. I was told specifically this is his name 5 years ago whenever I took over as chair. And for 5 years he's sat here, and I have no clue what to do with him. So I decided for this video, what the heck, he'll be my co-host. And actually he'll weigh in on an important topic later in this video. So anyways, let's go on now and get serious, and we'll talk about how to create, submit, and peer assess your mini projects. All right, let's walk through the process of creating, submitting, and peer assessing your mini project. So we'll start here at the main class page. Over here we have the nav bar, which has all the entries for various class material and activities. Kind of the 3 most important ones are video lectures, quizzes, and mini projects. So kind of at the start of each week, go out here, you'll click on mini projects, and you'll see here's kind of an overview of how the process works for submitting and assessing a mini project. And at the bottom you'll see the links for the various mini projects that you have waiting. So here, for example, we have 2 current mini projects out. This is the one for the end of week 0. We want a shrubbery. That's optional. You don't have to turn it in. Just there for you to figure out how peer assessment works. And the second one, this is the one you're going to turn in. It's the end of week 1. It'll be rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Now, kind of one of the things that comes up is when are these due? So we have one uniform time for the entire class when everything is due. Quizzes, mini projects, everything. And that is 500 Greenwich Median Time. Now, because everybody works on their own local time, you got to figure out when is that for you. So Coursera has support for this. So the first thing I want you to do is go up to your settings, up here, pull down, and make sure your time zone is set correctly. So I'm in the Chicago time zone, so I'm actually in Houston, so everything's fine there. And now you can pull down here, and you can see that it says, well, everything is due midnight Saturday in Houston. So that's actually 500 Greenwich Median Time. And if you set this button over, you can actually see kind of the time dates for both submission, peer assessment, and then getting back the results. So you're going to have about 3.5 days to do peer assessment in there. So my kind of suggestion is, since it's going to do in the middle of the weekend, my suggestion is start early, and then you've got Saturday to kind of work on doing the current week's assignment, and then you can kind of take a glance at the upcoming week's assignment when it's released. Okay, let's go on and we'll look at the specific assignment. Okay, let's go walk through building your first mini project. So we'll go to this page, we'll say click go to assignment, and actually up pops the web page for the assignment. At the top you can see kind of 3 things here. These correspond to the submission phase, which is we're in right now. There'll be a peer evaluation phase, and there'll be a phase where you see the results. So I'm actually recording this video well before class starts. We scroll down here, we'll see kind of a startup description of the mini project. The main thing in this particular mini project is to walk through the logistics, so I have a fairly detailed description of exactly what we're talking about. One thing to note here is that the mini project is always released at 500 Greenwich Mean Time on a Saturday morning. So that means you have exactly 8 days to work on a big mini project. So if you get done early, you have an entire weekend to work on, you have the following week, and you have another day there. So if you work fairly effectively, you have a good bit of time to work on the mini projects. If you scroll on down, you see kind of the rest of what we're going to talk about here. One thing to note here is we have a Save service available for Code Sculptor. For some reason, Save doesn't work in Code Sculptor. We've had that occasionally with students from some countries that block access to Google storage. You can use this link and have another route in to actually generate a Code Sculptor URL that you can submit for your mini project. Let's scroll on down. For most of your assignments, this will be kind of the meat of what you'll see. You'll see a little introduction, and then you'll see what I'm going to refer to as a mini project development process. And that's going to be very detailed. It's going to walk you through how to build your mini project step by step. It's important that you read it. To help you get through these mini projects, we're going to give you very detailed advice and recommendations. I had way too many students in previous sessions of the class ignore this and say, I can do it on my own. And then at the end, they get stuck and they come saying, oh my gosh, what's going on? I can't do this. I asked, did you follow the development process? And they go, no. So use this. It's here to help you. And then the second thing I want to point out is that there's a grading rubric attached to this. So as you're working on the project, we'll tell you exactly what your project needs to do. You're going to have questions such as, does my project need to do X? Well, look at the grading rubric. The grading rubric is going to have in this case, probably about 15 to 25 items that will determine whether your project works correctly or not. And they're going to be very small point ranges. You either get a point or you won't. So for example, down here, one of the rubric items says the program prints a message in the console. Okay, if your program does it, you get a point. If your program doesn't, you won't. So go through and take a look at this. When you're actually ready to start working on your mini project, we're always going to provide you with a program template. And that'll be a Code Sculptor file that you can start from that provides kind of a code base for getting working on your project. For kind of the early mini projects, it's not so critical. You can probably do them from scratch. But when you start working on some of the projects later in the class, we're going to give you a lot of useful things. For example, when you do rice rocks at the end of the class, we're going to give you all the art and sound assets. So that template's going to contain information about how to get your hands on those. So let's just go through and do this mini project really quickly. So I'm going to click on this. And up pop Code Sculptor, and what we see here, here's Code Sculptor. We've got some comments, but most importantly here we see print hello world. So this mini project is really easy. We just have to change this to print, we want a shrubbery. So let's do that. Let's not forget our dots. A shrubbery. Let's run it real quick. Looks pretty good. We can go back here and let's take a peek at the grading rubric again. Same number of dots, looks pretty good. So let's go into Code Sculptor. Now we can hit save. And notice now it generated a fresh Code Sculptor URL here. So this is unique for your particular solution. So now when we're ready to submit this, all we do is the following. We select the URL, Control-C to copy. We go down and we paste it in this box. That's all you do. You don't cut and paste a version of your program in here. Cutting and pasting entire pieces of programs is very tricky. What happens if somebody who's grading your project accidentally doesn't get an entire project? You're going to be upset. So the critical thing is only submit a Code Sculptor URL. Don't submit your program in here. When you're happy with it, click the Honor Code button. Notice what that did. That actually highlighted this button, Submit for Grading. Okay. So a lot of time I've seen people say, oh, I can't figure out how to submit it. This button isn't highlighted for me. You have to click this box that says I agree to the honor code. When you're ready to submit it for grading, click Submit for Grading. And there it is. We've now submitted your code for grading. So a couple of things about submission. If you decide, wow, I submitted it early and I wanted to go back and work on it some more because I realized there was a mistake or I was a little bit kind of worried I was going to get it done in time, it's perfectly fine to cut and paste a new URL in here corresponding to a new assignment and resubmit it. There's no penalty for submitting as much as you want. If you're getting close to the deadline and you think, oh man, the deadline passed, Coursera has a fairly generous policy on late submission. There's a great grace period. So if you're a couple of minutes past the deadline, don't panic. Just go through and submit it. I think most of the time, you've got a fair bit of time to do it. I want to emphasize one thing. You have to click the submit button. If you click save, your project will not be submitted for grading. Saving your project does not get it submitted for grading and peer assessment. This is probably the biggest thing I can say in this one video is click submit. If you don't click submit, you'll be very sad when you find out that you're not going to be able to do peer assessment and get your own project assessed by your peers. Hit submit. Okay, now let's go off and take a look at peer assessment. Okay, let's walk through the process of peer evaluation. So an hour after the mini project is due, the peer assessment phase opens. And so if you go back to the assignment page, this tab will be active. And in particular, if you click on this link, you'll be directed to 5 pages, one for each of 5 of your peers. Your job will be go through and take those peers' projects and assess them based on the grading rubric that we provided. You'll then be asked to evaluate your own project and do self-assessment. So if we scroll down, we're actually working on the first student. Now, because this is before we've actually started peer evaluation, this box is empty, but this box will contain the URL for your peer's assignment. Below, we'll have kind of the form that you'll need to do to actually do the evaluation. We'll ask you 2 questions to start. What kind of operating system does your computer have, and what kind of browser did you use in case there's some issue with some of how your peer assessment actually came out. Here are the grading instructions, and this essentially kind of leads into the 4 rubric items we talked about. This is here the first rubric item, that we submit a valid CodeSculptor URL, and then we have some options for this, and then we have some place to submit some comments. So let's go through and do it. I actually have a URL, so I'm sitting here in CodeSculptor. I'm going to paste it in, and let's hit enter, and sure enough, up comes the project we just did, that we just created. So it looks like that was a valid CodeSculptor URL, so I'm going to go through here and say 1, and because it worked, I'm not going to put any comments in. See, running the program does not throw an error. Well, let's do that. So I'll run it. No errors. Looks good. Let's go back and give them a 1. Keep going. It says prints a message in the console. Yeah, printed a message in the console. Good job. Okay, let's keep going down. Last one, prints the following message. We want a shrubbery. Okay, well, let's see, run it again. We want ... a shrubbery. Uh-oh, wait. They misspelled shrubbery. Let's go back. It says, we want a shrubbery. It says, prints the specified message. Now, if you were having this machine graded, you'd be out of luck. But we're using humans. So humans have the ability to make judgments. And one of the judgments is, did your peers satisfy the spirit of this rubric item? Remember, we're all here to learn. So I'm going to ask Sirloin. Sirloin, did they meet the spirit of this rubric item? Well, Sirloin, being part of King Arthur's round table, is merciful, and he says, yes, he did. So I'm going to give him full credit, but I'm going to make a note here that you misspelled shrubbery. It's always good if there's an issue or you take off points, add a comment here. Just think how it is. It's very frustrating if you get points marked off of your project and there's no reason given. So take a few seconds and put in a message here if there's some issue with the project on a particular item. Then you give a chance to give some overall feedback here. Remember, this should be positive. Your goal is not to make your peers feel bad. It's to give helpful advice. You did a great job outside of spelling. There you go. And at this point now, you can submit your evaluation. Once you've done that, of course, it will prompt you to go off and do 4 more students and do the same process of filling in forms. For most mini projects, this should take at most an hour. You spend maybe 10 minutes on each one. That gives you, basically, you have to do 5 of your peers, and then you have to do yourself. That's about an hour's worth of work. The better job you do, hopefully your peers will do a good job on your project. One caveat, you got to hit submit. You can't get to the next projects until you hit submit. So doing your peers is usually pretty easy. People don't mess that up. but you're in a hurry to get finished, and you're doing your self-assessment and you forget to hit submit, what happens? Well, Coursera says you didn't do your self-assessment. And the way the grading is set up, and we can't change this, is of course the way Coursera works, is you get a 20% penalty if you fail to do peer assessment or self-assessment. So please remember to hit submit. It's painful to lose 20% of your hard-earned grade because you forget to hit submit evaluation. Okay, go out there and give it a crack. I'll work through the logistics. This isn't for a grade, so this is your chance to make some errors and learn how to do it correctly next week when we do rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. Okay, see you then.